Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the Mission Impossible podcast that, I mean, it's just kind of I think it's just the best one. I mean, I know there's not that many.
Wow,
but
so you're just declaring that you think we're better than Minute Impossible? Is that what you're saying? Because there's only two of us.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're going to get on to Minute Impossible. We'll have to get those guys on our show at some point, too.
I'll say it to their faces, too. I don't give a shit.
Wow.
You know? Yeah.
This is bold.
I'm coming out swinging, you know? I'm fired up.
It's kind of like you want to start a fight.
I do. I want to start, if not a fight, then a carefully choreographed helicopter chase, if you will.
Oh, I love that.
2 podcasts gunning for that number 1 spot. This podcast is Light the Fuse. This is Drew Taylor with Charles Hood again, as always.
Hello.
And this week we're back. We've got the second part of the Barney Burman episode. He is obviously the maestro behind the amazing makeup effects from Mission Impossible 3. And we're going to get more stories about that. We're going to get more stories about JJ. What else is in this episode, Charles?
Well, he also talks about, we asked him about his Oscar and winning the Oscar, and it's pretty amazing work that he did on Star Trek. It's also interesting that David Leroy Anderson collaborated with Barney on Star Trek Into Darkness. So Barney came back to the second Star Trek and added David Anderson to help him. And David is the one who he's won Oscars for both Men in Black and Nutty Professor, working with Rick Baker. And David actually went on to do Ghost Protocol. So there's it's like kind of a lot of intermingling here between all these guys.
It's a small society, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how all these guys end up working together. And Barney, we end up talking to Barney about a project he did with Rick Baker in this episode that is not a very well thought of movie, but has some stunning makeup effects work.
Right.
And Rick Baker, if you don't know, Rick Baker's a legend. He did American Werewolf in London, the Thriller music video, Coming to America, Gremlins 2, Men in Black, Nutty Professor, like I said. He's won a lot of Oscars. And so, yeah, we talk a little bit about Rick Baker this week.
I was really excited with this episode, and I think people are going to love the way it turned out.
Yeah. And as always, check out our Patreon. We got bonus content on there. We're hoping to get our commentary for the first movie done this month. Our plan is to do a commentary for each movie every other month. So we're going to hope to get De Palma's commentary done by around this time of the release of this episode or soon thereafter. Very excited to do these commentaries, and there's other bonus content as well. We had an extended interview with Robert Elswit. We had extended minutes that whenever we cut out little bits of episodes, we will end up putting them onto the bonus content. So if you subscribe at Mission Commander status, then you'll get those bonus content. Also, I want to remind people again that the iTunes reviews contest is going on. It's the first podcast of these 4 to get 25 new iTunes reviews. So help us, give us a lot of iTunes reviews so we can beat them. The other podcasts are Just Shoot It, Respect the Process, and Making Movies is Hard. They're great other podcasts that are all about filmmaking. They're great, but let's be honest, they're not as great as us.
No.
So let's get those reviews out there. Or you know what? Maybe we're not as great. That's fine. But just get us the number of reviews so we can win this contest.
Okay. That's a good approach.
Whoever loses has to advertise the winner's podcast.
Oh, yeah. So, we don't want to do that. We don't have the time. Also go and get some merch, right, from the site?
Oh, yes. Yes, please do. Check out the merchandise on our website.
We've got some great shirts. We've got more shirts coming. There'll probably be more shirts by the time this episode comes up. But the shirt that we put up has been surprisingly popular, I will say that.
Yeah.
We sold a bunch, and we'll be back after the episode for some special thanks and some other stuff. So stay tuned.
We'll reveal who we interviewed, that Oscar winner.
Oh, okay.
Stay tuned for the end of the episode. We'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll be back to wrap things up.
Were you in Italy, or was that stuff all shot here?
I was mostly shot here, and they did go to China, though, which I was a little bummed I didn't get to go to China. And I think they did some exterior stuff in Italy. But...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, were you kind of, this isn't a therapy session or anything, but were you upset that you were not asked to come back for Ghost Protocol? Did you call JJ and were like, what the fuck, bro? Or anything like that?
You know, I think I was busy on something, because I remember talking to producers and saying, I think they were kicking around some names, and one of them was David Anderson. And I was like, oh, yeah, get David Anderson. Also on Star Trek, I was busy, and I was like, David Anderson just did your Mission Impossible film. You should bring him onto this as well.
Right.
So I don't remember being butthurt by it,
Right.
especially.
And David Anderson, he did Ghost Protocol before he'd worked with Rick Baker, right, on Nutty Professor and some other, maybe Men in Black.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Men in Black, that's right.
Yeah.
And he's got a long career. He and I,
We'd love to get him on the show.
His
too.
dad used to work for my dad way back on Cat People. And
Really?
Oh, wow.
things like that.
Wow.
So we didn't really hang out, but we knew each other from
But could
being
you
kids.
make the phone call to say have him on this show? Is what we're asking.
Good David Anderson on this show?
Yeah.
Do you think you would do it?
I don't know. I wouldn't say we're close or anything, but I could say,
okay.
hey, you should do this show.
Don't worry about it. We'll find him.
We'll find.
It's our own personal Mission Impossible.
I'm
You
sure
don't
he
have to worry
probably.
about
I'm
it.
sure he probably enjoyed doing it though. Well, he did. He brought me on to Dawn of the Dead, and
The Zack Snyder.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I was doing a lot of design work for him on that, and department heading with Tony G, the zombie stuff for Dave, and that was a good time. And I know him well enough to say I think he would really enjoy doing this.
I hope he hears this.
So that's cool. You kind of back and forth sort of hired each other for different things.
Yeah.
Like so, is it kind of like when you're on a project? If it starts to get overwhelming, you start to bring on more people. Is that how it goes, or is it something from the beginning where you're like, this is my team I'm going to have?
Usually you have some amount of your core team, and then you bring on other people as needed, and you're always trying to get the best people you can. And you never know who's going to be available. I've seen, I just went and day checked on a film in Atlanta that Tony Gardner, who's a very good friend of mine, was doing, and he's like, hey, you want to come to Atlanta? Sure, I'll come make zombies in some kind of land again. I can't tell you what the film was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I wonder what that could be.
Yeah.
I won't say what it is. But I've seen people, everybody's just wants to be creative and keep busy, and if someone's got downtime, I don't know if you're Bill Corso or you're V. Neil or you're Dave Anderson or me or whomever, we're a game. We're always just sort of floating around and playing in everybody else's playground.
Obviously, these Mission Impossible movies have a history of sort of like calamitous productions in terms of scheduling and writing things on the fly, but this movie seemed to be pretty smooth production-wise. Is that your experience on this?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was a very well-oiled machine. For JJ Abrams' first film, I thought he did a brilliant job.
Yeah.
And how many people do you have? Like, did you have what was the department for this? Like, how many people were helping you with this?
For me, I had like 3 people, I think. I had my brother was helping me on certain days. I had 2 guys in the shop, and one of them came to set to kind of assist a couple times. But I mean, my studio was fairly new, and I had this feeling like I have to do it all myself as much as possible. So, I was doing the live cast, I'm making the molds, I'm doing the sculpting. And that's another thing, is as far as sculpting, it was beneficial that Philip's head was big enough that Tom's head just fit inside it. I didn't have to come up with an oversized Philip likeness to fit over Tom. He just had a big head.
Right.
So
these are practical realities that I hope Christopher McQuarrie's thinking about when casting the next Mission Impossible.
It's actually it's
who does Tom Cruise's head fit inside of?
Yeah.
It's really good if you can think in those terms a little bit, because not only practically, but if you're watching the movie and you've got, look, Tom, if you're trying to get him to, if we're trying to sell Tom Cruise is disguising himself as Michelle Monaghan,
right?
That's harder.
How are you going to sell that? She's clearly a smaller person, with a smaller head, so it wouldn't really work.
There haven't been any gender swapping masks.
That's right. It's a PC world.
Yeah. Very rigid.
You don't do that. Even spies don't do that.
Yeah.
Man.
Wow.
So how do you think the mask work has been in the subsequent films?
I think they always pull it off very well, so to speak, if you pardon the pun. I don't ever remember looking at something and being critical of it. The first one still blows me away.
Yeah.
It still holds up.
That very first mask pull in the opening scene when he just the way that Tom Cruise pulls it down.
Yeah, he had a great way doing it.
Yeah.
And then later on when he pulls off John Voight's face, it's like, man, how did they do that?
And that was some really early, talk about early ILM stuff, you know?
Yeah. But
what happened to Rob Bottin? Where he's like he doesn't work anymore, right? He's like kind of
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, he's a bit of a reclusive type. I don't know him well.
Yeah.
I guess he does some commercials and stuff now and then. But
okay.
I just hear rumors. I would love. He was going to. He was going to at one time direct, I think, a Friday the 13th or something, and I would love to have seen. His film. Whatever the category is, I would love to see what he comes up with.
Yeah.
He's incredibly imaginative.
Yeah, I mean, his work on The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, it's just some
Legend
of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. It still blows my mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was his last movie? He worked on Fight Club for Fincher, right?
He did. Doing all the prosthetics, the wounds, and things like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Margaret Prentice doing the application, she's brilliant.
Yeah, that's an amazing. Those swollen eyes and things like that.
Yeah. It's one of the few times I've seen that kind of wound seem authentic. Everybody talks about it. It's always in the script. Half his face is swollen up. And then you get to the meetings and they're like, well, maybe it's just a little color, shine a little bluish under the eye.
Right.
And it's like, well, all right. Do we want to sell this as a real thing or do we want to play Fantasyland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually it's the latter. And sometimes, it's their film. It's everybody's choice. But I just miss when someone has an opportunity to do something kind of cool or kind of visceral and real, and then they decide to lessen it because it's cheaper, or they don't want to take the time, or they don't want to obscure the actor's face, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
You have any of those qualms when shooting actors? You just want to see as little of them as possible.
Yeah.
But isn't that part of being an actor? Don't you want to get in those disguises? Don't you want to be a character? Don't you want to have your face swollen up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin Yeager did Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And there were all those stories about Johnny Depp wanting to have a prosthetic nose and extended fingers and things like that because he wanted to look more like the cartoon.
He finally got those long fingers in Dark Shadows.
A lifelong ambition. Finally realized.
To have the long fingers. You also worked on, this is a movie that is not thought of very highly, but I will always...
Let's bring that one up.
But I will always stand behind the technical aspects of this movie and the music and everything that was behind it, which is Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
And so you worked on that, right? Some of the Rick Baker's makeup in that is unbelievable. I was curious which makeup you did for that.
I did several apes. I did the Thade's sister or something that brings the little other ape and they're picking out the
right. So he was like a young girl.
Yeah. And then the one I did most consistently was Tim Roth's stunt double.
Okay.
So I got to make up that Thade character over and over again on his stunt double.
Was he easier to do? I just remember reading Rick Baker talk about how he requested Tim Burton hire actors that did not have big noses.
Yes.
And Tim Roth had a really big nose, so it was really hard to make this ape mask.
And yet it was one of the most amazing things to look at. I would just sit there and stare at him. Sometimes I would look at him and because I did his stunt double, but I would look at Tim to study him and make sure I'm doing things right. And sometimes I would sit there staring at him, and he'd look at me and go, "That's not me you're looking at, mate." So he figured I'm looking at the stunt double again.
Yeah.
But that stunt double is also, I think, of the 4 or 5 clips when apes are capturing the humans in the jungle. That same guy who plays the stunt double captures 3 or 4 of them.
Right.
He is different apes capturing these humans. So I got to make up him as all these different apes as well.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Who was grumpier, Hoffman or Roth?
I did not find Tim Roth to be grumpy.
Okay.
That's cool.
He didn't have a great time on that movie.
He may not have.
Yeah.
Toward me, he was not grumpy.
Yeah.
Hoffman was a little grumpier toward me. He was not going out of his way to make it pleasant.
What was it like making up Charlton Heston for that infamous?
I didn't do Charlton Heston. So. I don't know, but they had these teeth made for him, and I think he wore dentures at that point or something.
He refused to use
the teeth, which actually really worked for the character because he just looked that much older.
Yeah. And Roth didn't want to be in the scene with him. And,
is that right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they're
the
political
stuff,
at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie is not great.
No.
But it is beautiful looking.
It
and
is.
The music, it's one of Danny Elfman's best scores.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely
agree.
Rick Baker's work is stunning in that movie.
There's so much good about that film.
Yeah.
If you watch it with the isolated music score on, it's the best way to watch that movie. It's amazing. It's so good.
I think it was just kind of a bad idea.
Yeah.
The story and the script were just not... Because everybody has Planet of the Apes in mind. Now, if this had come out separately and there'd never been a Planet of the Apes movie,
right,
it might have been a huge hit. People might have loved it.
Yeah.
But I think people already had this kind of preconceived notion about what Planet of the Apes is supposed to be.
Right.
And that was just like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not... I think, Mark Wahlberg is very good in certain parts.
Yes.
And I don't think that was his...
It wasn't a great
It's
role
a
for
weird,
him.
it's sort of a weird
He
character.
is great in some, really great in some movies, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that wasn't.
The Departed,
right
he's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and Boogie Nights, great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that was
The
sort of the last? Are you going to just talk about Mark Wahlberg?
We're talking about, this is a Mark Wahlberg podcast.
Is that sort of like the? I was listening to a podcast earlier today, actually, that sort of hypothesized that was kind of like the last big like makeup movie. Is that how you feel?
It kind of seems that way, although there have been other things like you may not realize it, but I mean, Dawn of the Dead. Mm-hmm. We had, I don't know, I had to make up like 300 zombies some days.
Wow.
And this other zombie film that I was just on recently, we had like 130 zombies. I remember working on Master and Commander. I was keying the second unit, and we made up anywhere between like 70 to 230 extras and stunt people every day, just in case.
Wow. That's one of my favorite movies. I love Master and Commander.
Is that the Peter Weir of it?
Fantastic movie.
Well, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Probably.
Peter Weir of it?
Just wanting to be like, just having, he made up 200 people just in case. So
yes,
like that's like
Peter Weir was asking
perfectionist
for that.
and
it's like some days we'd use them, sometimes we wouldn't, but they wanted them there and ready to be used in case it goes that way.
Right.
So
you reteamed with JJ for Star Trek. Was that a noticeably different experience in terms of your working relationship or him as a filmmaker? Did you feel like he had grown, or
by the time we got to Star Trek, I think we had a pretty good kind of easy connected working relationship. It was not, I would say, an easy movie for me.
Okay.
Primarily because we started this film with 13 weeks prep, which was, I think, half at best of what we needed.
Okay.
Wow.
And you know, in Star Wars Force Awakens, there's that whole sort of flea market on that desert planet scene.
Yes.
That was in Star Trek. There was going to be this big flea market scene.
Wow.
And we were designing characters for this flea market scene. And then after a few weeks of designing, suddenly that scene was dropped. It was an ice planet with one alien and all these other characters that we were doing, because we still wanted the same number of aliens. They had to be redesigned and placed somewhere else.
So that's where he was going to meet Spock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of our work, with only a couple of exceptions of characters, had to be scrapped, and we now had less time to do them. And all these things that scene was going to shoot in like March. Now they wanted to start peppering these aliens in December and January. And it was a grueling schedule for me. So I slept about 4 hours a night for about 6 months.
Jeez.
Trying to get this thing.
But
and with no days off.
But
great creatures. I love the guy with the algae on his nose in the bar.
Yeah. That's my buddy Doug Tate.
Okay.
And he's in the new Hellboy movie as the Garagor. or whatever the big pig man is.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay. And then what about that weird robot guy? I can't remember if it was in the first one or the second one. Who had the kind of like dome in the back of his head, who was on the Starfleet. You even know what
I don't remember which guy.
Well, isn't Warwick Davis a character too? Wasn't he the creature?
Well, your boy from Charlie.
Oh, is it not Warwick Davis? Is it?
Deep Roy.
Deep Roy.
Yeah, Deep Roy. Is it Deep Roy?
Is this sort of like little oyster man?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Oh, it's Deep Roy. Okay.
Yeah, Deep Roy.
Yeah,
I was very, very happy with that. Those are my two favorite characters were the Doug Tate, the bar alien, and Deep Roy as Keenzer. I think were my favorites.
Where were you falling on the Klingon scale? Because there, I don't know.
I wanted to do Klingons.
Okay, so there was a deleted scene on a whole sequence. Have you seen this?
For the first movie?
Yeah, on a Klingon prison planet, but they were masked.
We made a bunch of aliens for that. We made a salt sucker for that. We made a Gorn for that. We made all kinds of like throwback aliens, big head aliens, all that were stuff from the old series that were like reconfigured and reimagined.
Wasn't the discussion whether or not they would have the ridges, and that's why they kept them concealed?
They just said we're going to have helmets.
Okay.
We're going to have helmets. We don't need anything.
Right.
And then even once they got around to it, those helmets, you still see their eyes, and their eyes were just too human. So we're trying to figure out how to mask them and make little something just to give them some texture. I don't even remember exactly what the final result was. I just wish I wanted to reimagine Klingons a little bit, and I don't.
You did it on the second one though.
That was Dave Anderson,
that was Dave Anderson.
I didn't personally love them, but
you didn't like the ringed. That was weird.
I just felt like they've done some really good Klingons in the past. I liked them in 3 to a degree. That my dad did those.
In Search for Spock. Is you're talking about?
Yeah. And then was it in like 6, I think? The Undiscovered Country. I think they did some really beautiful Klingon work in that. And I'm thinking, just going off the whole tangent, like why don't you just pepper all these different Klingons and have them all in one movie, the different styles all in one movie to say Klingon planets as varied as the human, as varied as Earth.
I like that. That's cool.
So it kind of all then makes sense. They're all different races within this race.
Yeah.
Or this species.
That'd be awesome.
Anyway.
Wow.
And so all those 4 hours nights of sleep, was it worth it for the Oscar?
It didn't suck. It didn't suck.
Where do you keep it?
That was a pretty good day.
The ceremony, like winning the Oscar?
Yeah, just in my home office. It's just sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend it to people, actually.
Winning an Oscar?
Yeah.
You know, Elswit was not super into his Oscar win. We had Robert Elswit on the show.
Was that right?
He really downplayed it. We called him a genius a bunch of times. He was really mad.
But then he did tell the great story about the screening.
Yeah, you should listen to his episode.
I'll definitely do that.
Good.
Yeah, he tells the story about a couple years later it finally hit him and he was like, I fucking deserved that thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. Like after, there was a story about Hilary Swank, who I guess she won her first Oscar, Boys Don't Cry, and she was broke and like living off friends' couches or something. So she... After the awards, she went to a McDonald's, like didn't have enough money to buy a hamburger at McDonald's, but she had an Oscar. Something along those lines.
That sounds like Hollywood, yeah.
And I kind of went through the same thing. I mean, not that night, I had a great night. And then while we were shooting Star Trek, there was a writer's strike, followed by the threat of an actor's strike. So nobody was making any movies. Nobody was starting anything. Then the economy... in 2008 took a gigantic hit, so nobody's making any movies because of that, and I went almost bankrupt. I couldn't find any work, and I had to close my previous shop, and I ended up getting a divorce and firing my agent. I was such a Hollywood cliche; it made my teeth hurt. But you know, you just write it out, and then things change, and someone sometime out of the blue calls and says, "I got this TV show, can you make monsters for me," or whatever.
Right.
But you just never know. It was a weird and hard time of my life that the hardship of that time really stuck with me, and probably more than the sort of glory of feeling like, hey, I won this award.
Right.
So I can really see why people don't feel deserving of it. as time went by, I thought I worked so hard for that.
Yeah.
And even going into it, I remember telling people I don't have any pretense of winning an Oscar for this, but I want to make work that is worthy of it.
Yeah.
And,
well, you did.
I think you've done that several
Yeah,
times.
clearly.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just want to do the best possible job within the circumstances that I have.
Even if it means sleeping for 4 hours every night.
Well, I don't want to go back to that.
No.
I've done that, and I'm proud to have made it through that. But I do want to have that drive to be inspired by something so much that I want to make this great and really impress people. So.
Well, where do you sort of see the state of makeup effects these days?
I think it's more prevalent than it's ever been. I think there's more work going on in the larger shops and in smaller shops, and more people trying to do stuff out of their garage and their apartments. It's crazy. It's all over the place, partly due to zombies and partly due to superheroes.
Right.
And I love that. I love seeing the practical work being done. And yet, personally, I feel, I don't want to say burnt out on it. I don't have a lot that's inspiring me. And I want that. I crave something that goes, try this. Here's something you haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
When you say you're saying the material, like the scripts, is what you mean, or do you
yeah,
mean,
in part,
other people's work and the thing that everything you're seeing out there.
There's so much good work being done out there. It's almost then you look at something like Border, and the brilliant work that they did in that.
That was amazing.
Oh my God.
I didn't see that.
No, you didn't.
So good. It's like a Norwegian film or Swedish.
Swedish, I think. Yeah, it's based on a short story by the guy that wrote The Right One In.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a very cool movie.
I'll check that out.
It's definitely worth watching. The work that they did with Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour.
Oh yeah.
And all the character work that they did in Vice. There's a lot of really, really great work being done out there. I think Border is the kind of thing that just like you don't register, hey, that's a makeup ever.
But then there's people
that's
like
kind of beautiful.
we were talking earlier that you closed your shop and Baker's closed his shop and
I would compare those two as equal.
but it says something about maybe it's that lack of inspiration that he
in part is I mentioned you before. I close my shops. I get every now and then it'll be a big thing, and then there might be months where there's like. Someone says, "Oh, I need some scars made. Oh, do you have any babies I could rent? Or just whatever." And it's little things that I don't want to do. Frankly, I don't feel inspired. They're not interesting, not creative to me, and I don't want to be just a manufacturer. It was like I think it was Steve Wang once said, who if those who don't know, Steve Wang was instrumental in creating the Predator monster and is one of the great artists of our. He and Matt Rose, I believe, the guys did the Predator for Stan Winston. I feel like there's always like caveats to that. The main creature in the Predator, was done by Stan Winston. All the other stuff, like the hanging bodies and the gore and the blood, was stuff that I actually worked on at Boss Film when Steve Johnson was running it.
Oh wow!
But I'm not trying to throw myself into that credit. I only had an IMDb. It was a small cog in a bigger wheel.
But it's one of my favorite movies, Predator. One of our favorite movies.
Yeah.
Predator.
Well, it's great.
We love that
because it's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it should be. But what was I saying?
Steve Wang said something.
Steve Wang said, in the 80s we were rock stars, and now we're vendors.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it's a sad statement and true, because we get calls from people saying, "Hey, I got this thing where I need some burnt people walking around. You got anything like that?" It's like, no, we were creative. We're artists.
Yeah.
If you watch the DVD outtakes, the behind the scenes DVD stuff on Raging Bull, they talk to the sound designer, and if you ever just listen to the sound. You hear the elephants and the lions roaring and all the things that are in there that you don't really register that are part of the fight sequences. And this guy did amazing work. And he said after a job, he destroys all his tapes. And I thought, oh my God, the genius of that. So he's never starting with something he did before.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always from scratch. And if I
wish more sound people would do that.
Yeah.
Sound stuff. Whenever I'm doing like mixes and sound design stuff, it always drives me nuts. The sound of doors closing. And when I hear it, when I watch it on shows and stuff, and I hear the same canned door shutting sound, and it drives me out of my mind.
Yeah. But as a makeup effects artist, I wish I had the guts to destroy all my molds after every job. And that's part of why I closed my shop. I was like, I don't want to just have this shelves full of molds and cast something up for somebody every now and then. I want to make something anew that is interesting. Something we haven't quite seen before. And I don't care if it's a zombie. I could never do a zombie again. I'd be okay. Or you can come at me and say, here's a take on a zombie.
What if I slid a Bill Stout drawing across the table and said, do that zombie? New sort of Return of the Living Dead-esque.
I love Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, his designs are amazing.
Absolutely. And that's actually a good point. It's the kind of thing that would potentially inspire me and to go, ooh, that's cool.
Right.
I want to see that fleshed out.
Well, this is a question that we ask everybody sort of at the tail end of the episode. Should I do it?
Sure.
You've already said that the first one is your favorite, but I want you to rank all 6 Mission Impossibles.
Wow. Well, it's impossible for me to be biased.
Right.
So I would have to say number 1 is 1.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to put number 3 as my second favorite
Okay.
one. Again, I just thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think JJ did an amazing job telling a story, and I think it has such great heart to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's an emotional journey that most of them don't quite have.
Right.
So if I want to put 1 and then 3, and I'll be honest, 4 and 5 are kind of in the mix somewhere.
Okay.
So I'll put 6 third.
Okay.
What do we got? 1, 3, 6, and then 4 and 5. Switch them. I don't even know them well enough to.
Okay.
Wow.
And then poor John Woo.
And then poor John Woo goes, and so number 2 is number 6.
Right.
I think more than anything, just it doesn't really fit with the narrative of the whole series.
Right.
Who did the makeup?
It's an outlier. That's Kevin Yeager.
Oh, that's Kevin Yeager.
Yeah.
So some good makeup.
Oh, absolutely. Kevin Yeager is one of the people I've aspired to do work as quality as what he has done.
And always consistent too.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to tell people about your movie?
Yeah, sure. Since I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, you got a microphone in front of you. You might as well.
Oh, is that what this is? Crap. I was about to take a drink of it. I've written, directed, produced, and acted in my own film. It's called Barney Burman's Wild Boar. It was initially just called Wild Boar, and I decided 2 things. One, I saw a little interview with John Carpenter, who, when he was doing Halloween, which was not an independent film, it was Universal. But he said his one stipulation is he wants his name above the title. So it's actually John Carpenter's Halloween.
Right.
And I thought, that's genius. Brand yourself right away. So it's Barney Burman's Wild Boar for branding purposes. Also, when people are looking for this on video on demand, hopefully it'll be in the B's and not the W's.
Yes.
Oh, that is a good.
And people might see it and watch it more often than they otherwise would.
They always say it's better to have your title be at the top of the alphabet.
Exactly.
So
it feels very narcissistic, and it was a hard choice. I don't want to come off that way.
Well, I mean, with how much work you put into it, and it sounds like you have a
that's another thing.
lot of major credits.
Worked on it for 4 years, and it finally got finished in February. And I'm putting it out to distributors and putting it into festivals now.
Wow.
That's awesome.
You know that life?
Yes, I do.
You can see the trailer on YouTube if anybody's interested. Barney Burman's Wild Boar.
Are there any wild boars in it, though?
There are mutant boar men.
Ooh.
I like
So
that.
I was definitely a lot of inspiration from things like Island of Dr. Moreau and Planet of the Apes and, kind of old school practical creature stuff.
Yeah, and do you know what festivals you're playing in yet? Have you just starting that journey?
We're just starting to get them submitted, so and I don't want to say which ones
you
we've
can tell
submitted
us
to
when they get in. And
great.
And we'll put out the word.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple I'm very excited about. We are going to have it at Monsterpalooza this weekend.
in Pasadena?
April 13th. We're going to have a panel. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to have some of the masks and display pieces there, and maybe a couple surprises.
I wish I could go. I'm gonna see your old buddy JJ at Star
sweet.
Wars Celebration.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh, hell,
so that's where I'll be.
I don't blame you. I'd love to go to that.
Yeah.
Well, give him a big hug for me.
I will if I see him. Who is this person hugging me? Yeah. It's from Barney. Yeah.
You're touching me. Barney's touching you.
Well, one of our goals is to break into the Bad Robot offices to steal some hats. So
Yeah.
we'll let you know how that goes. Yeah.
That seems extreme for a hat.
Well,
With pretty cool hats.
yeah. Well, Barney, thank you so much for accepting this mission. It meant a lot to us.
Yeah.
And anytime you want to talk, if you remember things you've forgotten, come back on. We'll
Be careful.
Okay.
I might just call like anytime. Hey guys, you know what I forgot to tell you?
Maybe you can help us make you can make masks for us to get into
Oh,
Bad Robot.
yeah.
Can you put a JJ mask on my
Yeah.
face?
Absolutely. I can do that. And I would do
They'll
that.
never know.
We'll never know. Awesome.
All right, thank you.
And we're back. I wish we could have just talked with Barney for several days straight. Loved chatting with him. I think he's an amazing talent, and I love that side of the process. We haven't really gotten that yet, so that was really a big thrill.
Yeah, I feel like the makeup people they're unsung heroes
I agree.
in general in the movie business, but then also in this franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had big heavy hitters that have done amazing work, and it's just they need to be recognized.
I liked his kind of a approach too, with like ILM does their thing, we do our thing. It's all very kind of like, it's in concert. I thought that was a nice approach.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we talked about Deep Roy, who is an actor who I've always loved. He's in Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think he actually got $1 million to be all of the Oompa Loompas, right?
Wow. No, I had no idea, but good for him.
He plays every single Oompa Loompa in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They did multiple performances. I think they said they would film him for each Oompa Loompa. It wasn't like they just used this one performance and then repeated it 100 times and they had him in a frame. So anyway, it's really cool. He's also in Pink Panther Strikes Again, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time, and he's in Neverending Story. He was the Tin Man in Return to Oz, which is a movie that terrified me as a child. And he was, funny enough, we didn't talk about this with Barney, but I looked it up and found out that Deep Roy was Thade's niece in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Oh,
so
wow.
Barney said he did Thade's niece, and that was also Deep Roy.
That is so bizarre. Everything about that Planet of the Apes is just so weird.
It is so weird.
It's... Anyway.
You also mentioned William Stout, and I didn't even know who he was. I looked him up and saw that he did storyboards for Raiders of the Lost Ark and First Blood, and he did work on Pan's Labyrinth, I think.
Pan's Labyrinth, Dinosaur. He was working for a long time on the Magic Kingdom project for Jon Favreau. So he's pretty awesome. He does like a lot of books with Jim Henson, fairies and things like that. So
That's really
pretty
cool.
cool guy. Yeah.
And then it was also fascinating to hear about Master and Commander and how Barney made up all these people every day just in case Peter Weir needed them.
That's crazy.
That's
That's
so nuts.
the kind of control you want on one of your future productions. Just
Yes.
throwing your weight around. No, that was a really fascinating chat.
Yeah, and the big bombshell too. This is the really big thing. Was the Star Wars flea market scene?
Oh yeah,
It was originally intended for Star Trek.
for the first one, I guess, and it went to the ice planet instead.
Yeah, and then JJ put it into Star Wars. Has that ever been? I've never heard that before.
No, I've never heard that either. The making of Force Awakens has been clouded in obscurity, I feel. But do you want to drop the bombshell, Charles?
Oh
Who's
yes,
coming on the show?
who we interviewed?
Yeah.
You want? All right. Well, you might have already figured it out from our obvious hints, but we talked to Paul Hirsch, and we'll be releasing that interview very soon. It's an amazing interview. Paul Hirsch is the editor of Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the first Mission Impossible, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. He is a legend. It was incredible to sit down and talk with him.
Yeah, that was the most fun afternoon we've had in a while, either personally or together. And I thought that was great, and I'm so excited to share it with people. I think it's going to be really, really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody give us iTunes reviews, please, 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 iTunes reviews.
Do we have any thank yous? or shout outs?
Yes. We do need to thank Thomas Jeffroy for helping us out with this episode. And also this episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon and mixed by Luke Burson. So thank you guys so much for helping make this podcast possible. And we're really excited to keep this going. We've got a lot of fun things in the works that we're working on. And I don't even know if we've talked about this yet, but we tracked down the HD DVD bonus features.
Yes.
That enhanced commentary. We talked about this in the making of MI3. There's an enhanced commentary for MI3 that branched off, and it was only available on the HD DVD and then disappeared off the face of the planet and has not been put on any of the Blu-ray releases. Well, with the help of Adam Reed, he got us this footage, and we're going to do a special bonus episode about it. So if you subscribe to our Patreon at the Mission Commander level, which I think is $5.95 a month, then you'll hear the audio of this enhanced commentary. It amounts to, I think, maybe 12 or 13 minutes of JJ Abrams and Tom Cruise talking, and you and I will also be introducing each clip and breaking it down as well.
Does that sound exciting to anyone? That sounds terrible, but I think
there's some big MI3 fans out there who will like it.
All right.
No, I think it's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the scenes and stuff, but
Yes.
Yeah. So come back.
You're
next
such
week.
a curmudgeon.
Well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I don't know, when we're trying to like sell these things, it's kind of like, does anyone not want this? But I hope they do. Well, regardless, we'll be back next week. For Charles Hood, this is Drew Taylor. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFuse-Pod and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.